will a new Denver Broncos stadium truly impact the city of Denver and the community at large? And what intriguing things could be done with the current site of Empower Field to currently and future enhance our great city and the great state of Colorado? All things to come on today's rundown, but we have to begin with a special shout out to our friends at Denver Regenerative Medicine. Guys, if weight loss has been a struggle, it's time for something real. At Denver Regenerative Medicine, they use full-strength GLP-1 medications with doctor oversight. Start today with a free consultation. Real results for under $300 a month. Book now at denverregen.com. And with that, it is time to welcome in a very, very special guest to our show on the Rundown, and a voice who was pivotal in the announcement that we got this week from the Walton Penner Ownership Group and the city of Denver and the state of Colorado, and that is Denver Mayor Mike Johnston joining us right now. Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for joining us today. And I guess I'll start off by asking you, with the announcement that came yesterday, what do the Denver Broncos, in your position as mayor and just as a member of the community, mean to you? And why was it so important to push the initiative to keep the team in downtown Denver when so many other teams around the country have kind of opted out of that in favor of other ventures?
Yeah, first of all, it is great to be on. Thank you for having me. I'm a fan and so delighted to be on the show. Yeah, I think that is the question, is kind of what the Broncos mean to me and to this city and to this state. I mean, they are the heart of this city for me. I remember when I was 7 years old, my dad coming and waking me up in the middle of the night when Elway flipped from playing baseball to getting picked up by the Broncos. You know, I remember crying through every one of those Super Bowls in the 80s and 90s. I remember first date I had with my wife was when we watched Super Bowl 32. And I was like, I got to keep this woman forever if she's going to bring us our first Super Bowl win. So the Broncos, I think, are the heart of this community. People love it. They gather together every place. And as you said, they're the heart of the city. You know, we've had about 15 of the NFL franchises have lost their teams over the last 20 years. And that doesn't just leave a huge economic hole in the city. It leaves a huge emotional hole in the city. Talk to someone in San Diego, talk to someone in St. Louis. It's a killer. So that was why I said, you know, when I ran, it'd be over my dead body the Broncos would leave Denver, because this is, I think, probably the most important thing for many Denverites that'll happen in the 4 years that I'm mayor right now, because it changes the future of the city. And for us, this was the biggest win-win, was not just keeping the Broncos in Denver for 50 years, not just getting a stadium that you can have a retractable roof so we can host a Super Bowl and a Final Four, but also getting, you know, two neighborhoods of Denver. We have 180 acres of new development we can bring to build housing so folks that love Denver can still afford to live here. So the folks that have seats in the 500s aren't being pushed out of this city anymore. That really matters too, and this allowed us to do both.
In the joint statement that was released by you and Governor Polis and the Broncos ownership group, it was definitely very measured and correct, I think, in saying that this is a step in the right direction and kind of a signal of things to come. And that's why it was labeled as a preferred destination in the Burnham Yard district there. What do you believe is or expect to or hope the timeline to be when we can expect preferred to become confirmed and see steps taken in that direction?
I mean, we're all in on this being the site. There is no plan B we're holding. You know, we've moved heaven and earth to make this possible, including taking great community partners like Denver Water and helping them relocate 20 acres of their campus, you know, buying up almost 100 acres of real estate there that the Walton Penner Group has brought on. We're all in to make this happen. I think what that we are trying to respect with that is the process of, you know, the neighborhood will do a area plan where they help work with the Broncos on how they want this to be designed. They'll do a community benefits agreement where the Broncos and the neighbors help align on how this will support the community, which I think it will in powerful ways. And then we'll officially approve the zoning of this area next year sometime. So those are the important steps along the way, but it's not as if we're holding anything back or we're keeping a side plan. We are all in to make this work. And it's just a matter of now going through all the right steps to get community voice, community engagement, and start to build out the permanent design.
I love that. I love that. And speaking of the permanent design, as it relates to the Burnham Yard project portion of this announcement, what do you envision the development beyond the stadium and around the stadium, which has become kind of a common theme with NFL stadiums in the newer era of building? What do you envision that to look like, and how might it benefit the community in ways that they haven't been able to experience before?
I mean, the great example of this is, as I was thinking about as I walked out of the game on Sunday, you know, and you watch 70,000 people streaming out of the stadium. and they're all walking half a mile or 3/4 of a mile to find their car somewhere and drive home. You think about that versus what it's like to watch folks walk out of Coors Field after a game.
Mm.
As soon as you walk out the door, there's 8 bars there. There's 5 restaurants. You can sit and have a meal with your family or have a drink with your buddy. You can walk through town and shop if you want. So what we want is that complete fan experience where you might be someone who's walking 10 feet to your apartment because you live next door. You might be going to a bar or a restaurant where you hang out pregame and postgame. The old historic rail yard building, which is actually twice the size of the Union Station footprint, that will still be the anchor of the site. So imagine a Union Station right there next to a Mile High Stadium, and you got everything from places to hang out, eat, drink, sit in the grass. And so that's what we really want, is a fully activated space that's connected to those neighborhoods seamlessly. So you might get, you could eat lunch on Broadway and walk over to the stadium. You could get a drink on Colfax and walk down, but you'd also have a whole 100 acres of development right there at Burnham.
The historical element of the Burnham Yard area and the importance that it seems to be coming from your office and from the governor and from the Broncos as a whole to kind of hold on to that historical significance and what it means to the city of Denver and to the state of Colorado was definitely something that I felt was at the forefront of your message. Do you have any clear vision or plan as to how that may incorporate into the plans and the designs and ways that can be kind of reinvigorated throughout this project?
Yeah, I think for the folks that don't know the history, Burnham Yard is older than the state of Colorado. We've been running trains out of that since the 1860s. And there is still that original brick building that is there, but it's been empty for 10 years. It's never had houses on it. It's never had restaurants or retail on it. Most of the folks that lived in La Alma, Lincoln Park and worked there never went there except for to go to work. And so the idea of it really cultivating a historic site, building a neighborhood where there has always been business, but not ever really residence or activation, I think is what makes it so exciting. I think that the Penners and the Waltons are planning to preserve that giant historic structure that is the rail yard headquarters where all the trains would come in and out. I think that will be a magic historic place for the city. I think in the way that you see Union Station on every postcard or logo in the city right now, I think this will be a new version of that, and it'll be just another great place for Denverites to hang out.
Shifting gears a little bit to the current site of Empower Field, and I think this creates the proximity between the two, stretching from La Alma, Lincoln Park, and the Burnham Yard to the Sun Valley area where it currently sits. What do you envision in terms of development for that area and the possibilities that it can open up for the city and the community to connect all those different neighborhoods in a way that they haven't up to this point?
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that, Rich, because this is one of the reasons why I thought this was a once-in-a-century deal. It's one thing to say, we could have rebuilt the stadium on the current Mile High site, maybe even done the retractable roof. We could have figured that out. But the reason why this is such a historic win-win is you both get, Burnham has been sitting there empty for 10 years. It would be hard to find anyone with the resources to activate that space other than the Broncos. You got to move rail yards. They're doing an entire $20 million of environmental remediation. They're doing everything. It would be hard. We wouldn't probably ever have been easy to activate that region without them. But then the huge windfall is now these 80 acres of the current stadium come back to the ownership of the taxpayers of Denver. So the city gets all that back, which means we could on that spot build housing. We could build housing that's affordable for working families in West Denver. Right now, often when we're trying to build affordable housing, we got a private landowner that owns the land and we're trying to beg them to build some affordable units. When we own the land, we make the rules. We say, listen, this is going to be all for teachers and nurses and firefighters, or this is going to be, a great public park right here on the river's edge where you can hang out with your kids, kind of like you can down at REI, wade into the river, walk across to Ball Arena. And then you'll have that seamlessly connected from Federal all the way under the bridge into the Auraria campus, into Ball Arena River Mile, into downtown. It's just going to be seamlessly connects two parts of the city. So that is why I was so excited, is this is going to be a game changer for the neighbors of West Denver, as well as for the Burnham Yard development.
Another key point within the statement, specifically from the Walton Penner ownership group, that resonated strongly with fans was the idea that the project is entirely privately funded and that there will be no new taxes added, which is something that, to their credit, and something that I have gone out of my way to mention in the past, that, fans in Orchard Park, New York of the Buffalo Bills, who are getting a new stadium as well, do not have that luxury. And so many other stadiums, we're talking north of $6 billion worth of private excuse me, public funding from the taxpayers across all these new projects. That is not going to be the case here, but there is going to probably have to be some state money that is allocated for infrastructure and roads and things of that nature. What is your initial vision or timeline as to what that might look like as this project gets going forward in terms of mapping out new on-ramps and off-ramps and light rail and RTD and all that? Because I think that's something that's going to significantly impact the game day experience that you mentioned.
Yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned that, because not only are almost half the cities that have NFL franchises losing them from their city limits, the ones that are keeping them are writing huge public checks. I mean, I was in Charlotte last year. The city council there wrote $900 million just to refurbish the existing stadium. Missouri just wrote $500 million to the Chiefs to refurbish Arrowhead. So to say we're going to get an entirely new stadium without a taxpayer dollar, I talked to folks who've been doing stadium deals for 30 years who would say they haven't seen a deal like this ever, if not in a long, long time. So that's a huge win. But yes, for us, obviously, our job as a city and as the state is to make sure, whether you're building a stadium or whether you're building a convention center or whether you're building a shopping mall, we got to make sure there's a sidewalk that goes into it. There's a road that drives up to it. And so we will work on that infrastructure. To your point of when do those things become final? To know that, we'll have to know what is the layout plan for that whole site. Where is there going to be housing? Where is there going to be a restaurant? Where would the road be? Where would where's the front of the stadium? What does the stadium design look like? So over the next 6 to 12 months, the community will be doing that work on this neighborhood plan, and the Broncos will do it on the footprint. And then we'll know what kind of support we have to provide. But the key is they'll do infrastructure on the site, the land that they own. We'll do the public access in and out of that site, which is what we would do for any project of, a tenth of this size, but for sure any project of this size.
I have very much appreciated, Mr. Mayor, you coming on this program, as we are all big fans of the announcement yesterday. And obviously, we here at 104.3 The Fan try to be a mouthpiece and a speakerphone for the fan base. And I would be remiss in that capacity not to ask you on a personal level, beyond your mayoral office, how are you feeling about the Broncos this year? Do they have a franchise quarterback, you think? Are we, what are we thinking about this weekend in Indianapolis? Where are you at with our hometown team?
I mean, I will tell you that I picked Bo Nix as my second pick in my fantasy league right after I picked Justin Jefferson. So, and then I picked Cortland Sutton. So every Nix to Sutton touchdown is double points for me, which I'm all in on. But no, I mean, certainly on the game on Sunday, when you say 133 yards of total offense, and you give for the opponents, and defense is facing, we turn over the ball and they're first and 10 at our 25, and it results in 4th and 45 from their own 45-yard line. That's a good spot to be. And so I feel like we got some tweaks to the offense. Love to see a little more deep balls. I know a lot of short out routes, and that was fine for opening day. But I feel great about what I think is going to be a historic defense, and I'm excited about what I think is going to be an exciting offense. So yeah, you can feel that energy in the air, and I feel like we are a city that has a real legitimate shot at 3 title contender teams in the same city at the same time. I don't think that's ever been true in my adult lifetime, and so I'm fired up. Also, one thing to add to, I mean, we didn't talk about, which is important on two fronts, the retractable roof idea.
Yeah, of course.
Which I think is, first of all, critical for the Super Bowl, also critical for things like, Final Four. A lot of folks don't realize if you went to, then Pepsi Center for the Final Four, gosh, in the 90s when it was here, I went to that. Ever since then, they don't do Final Fours in basketball stadiums anymore. They're all football stadiums. They got to be indoors. So those types of events are true. But I think equally important about the retractable roof is I think the Broncos and I are aligned. That does not mean they're going to be closing the roof on Monday night if it's snowing and the Raiders are in town. You absolutely let it dump on them. It just means to bid for things like a Super Bowl or NCAA, you want that capacity. So I think it's going to be the best of both worlds. Still get real Denver weather, but you can host any event you want in the world.
You know what? And on that note, because I think this is something else that I see and I hear online and on social media and out in the community in terms of fan base opinions and things like that, relating to the retractable roof and the possibility of opening up to hosting a Super Bowl and a Final Four, like you mentioned, and year-round concert venues for major events, WrestleMania and things of that nature. From your perspective, as somebody who has eyes on it more closely and more detailed than any of us have in our individual capacities, what does the opportunity to host those events and having that capacity and flexibility mean for the city, do for the city in a positive aspect, either from a societal, cultural standpoint, a revenue standpoint? What is the, from your chair, benefit of opening up those things to the city of Denver and the state?
Yeah, that's exactly the win is, and I can tell you because I've studied this closely. We normally do right now about 7 or 8 big events a year outside of Broncos games, right? So you got Metallica or Taylor Swift or name it, 7 or 8 nights a year. We look at stadiums that are closed. You look at places like Allegiant or places like Mercedes in Atlanta. They can do 20 to 25 of those events a year. So you literally triple or quadruple the number of those events that are possible, and not just open up marquee events like the Super Bowl you couldn't get, but you 3x the amount of amazing 70,000 person stadium concerts you can have in your own city. And I think that takes us from about $300 million a year of economic impact to over $1 billion just from those increased event numbers. And better than that, it's, instead of 7 times a year, it's 20 times a year. You got your favorite artist, your favorite event, your favorite WrestleMania event all in town. And I think that's a win for the city. So I just view it as more moments of joy of places people are going to love to go to that are now in our own hometown.
Potentially putting an end to what every Denverite and Colorado concert fan in the summertime at Empower Field has become accustomed to, which is lightning delays and other potential things as well. So
that's true. That's true. Or, there are some favorite tours that don't come through Denver before. My wife's a Beyonce fan. I wanted to take her for her birthday. We had to go to Atlanta because Beyonce only does closed stadium tours, And when I went to Atlanta, she did 4 nights in Atlanta. And everyone on the plane was there for Beyonce. Everyone in our hotel was there for Beyonce. That's 4 nights of major economic impact on a city we lost because we didn't have the ability for a closed roof. And so I think it's just the beginning on what we could do. But to do that in a place where you also might have just your favorite restaurant, you go on a random Tuesday night to meet your buddies for dinner is also a great win also.
I love it. I love it. Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for taking some time out of your very busy day to join us today on the Rundown and on Denver Sports 104.3 The Fan. You are welcome on this program anytime, and we look forward to potentially catching up with you soon with some other big developments and announcements that could be coming down the road. I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Love to do that. And I will look forward to seeing Daniel Jones have a historically terrible week this week after his historically good one last week.
Hell yeah. There we go. That's a great way to end it. Mr. Mayor, you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you again.
Thanks, man. Take care.
To the rest of you out there, have a great rest of your afternoon. We are inching closer to a Broncos game day this weekend against the Colts, and we will catch you tomorrow at noon for the next Rundown.